First up with us this morning, we have the Honorable Dan Forrest, Lieutenant Governor. And presenters, please don't think me being rude, but if you do go over the time, I am going to have to interrupt you because we've got the room. We're going to be here for about 2.5 hours, and we've got to get out of here. So, but take your time again, and the Lieutenant Governor come forward. We're ready for you, and thank you for being with us this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're honored to be with you here this morning. Thank you, members and guests, for being here today. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you about Common Core, something that there's certainly a lot of passion about on all sides of the aisle. As many of you know, over the past year or so, I have raised a number of concerns and asked numerous questions about the details of Common Core, some from exhaustive research by my staff, others from constituents themselves. Interestingly, very few of those questions have been answered directly. I've discovered, though, that through this process, that this issue is not Republican or Democrat or independent. It crosses all lines, of politics and ideology. I've stated many times as well that I am not against standards. Quite on the contrary, we've had standards in North Carolina for years, and I believe we should always strive for the highest standards for our students to equip them for the challenges of the global economy that we're in right now. Just over a year ago, I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to uphold the Constitution of North Carolina and the United States. I take that oath seriously, as I know that each of you do as well. And our state constitution is clear about providing a sound basic education to our children. And I know that each of you will agree with me that we want to go far, far beyond that and provide the best, most rigorous and competitive education in the world for our students. Why would we stop anywhere short of that? Why have we not already attained that goal here in North Carolina? After decades of standards that have all been penned as rigorous, career and college ready, how is it that Common Core is the new silver bullet of educational excellence in America? The United States Constitution, on the other hand, is silent on education. The 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution states that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved for the states respectively or to the people. Since education is not mentioned in the United States Constitution, it is clearly one of those powers reserved for the states. Thus, states have plenary or absolute power in the area of education. I believe the beauty of federalism is that we have 50 states that we can call innovation laboratories that will always find more creative solutions to the education challenges facing their states than any bureaucracy in Washington. Why would we in North Carolina, or any other state for that matter, abdicate our responsibility to the federal government or any unaccountable national trade association for the education of our students? Why would we endorse moving the power of education decision-making away from parents and local communities and place it in the hands of Washington bureaucrats? How many of you know a single writer of the Common Core standards? How many of you know how the Common Core standards were funded and by whom? Herein lies the problem. Not that Common Core is evil, not that Common Core has some hidden agenda to nationalize education. The real problem is that nobody is accountable for these copyrighted standards that we don't have the right to take and to change for the needs of our children. Who do we call when something doesn't work? Who do we call when there's a real problem with developmental inappropriateness? Nobody is accountable. You have heard Dr. Atkinson and others say that the copyright of Common Core does not matter. And then I say, why have the copyright at all? If these standards are not covered by copyright, then let the states exercise their decision-making authority and alter the standards as they see fit. Let us take what is good and keep it. Let us take what is bad and eliminate it. Let us take what needs to be improved and fix it. This is called federalism, entrepreneurialism, competition, and it is what has made America great. A one-size-fits-all approach to the educational standards is just plain un-American and just plain won't work in our diverse country. Bill Gates did not achieve his success and help transform the world of technology because he was common. No, he was exceptional. Malcolm Gladwell says he was in the right place at the right time to take advantage of his exceptional gifts and his inquisitive nature. If he was forced into an education system of common standards, he might just have been ordinary, not extraordinary. Apple Steve Jobs, Dell Computers Michael Dell, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, they didn't achieve their success as entrepreneurs and leaders because they were common, and certainly not because they followed a one-size-fits-all education program. They were all outliers. They were all innovators. And we must strive for in America. To celebrate our unique gifts, to push students to extraordinary excellence in whatever career they may choose. To allow those who can advance rapidly to advance rapidly through their education. To prepare innovators and entrepreneurs to think, invent, design, create in order to meet the needs of the rapid pace of our global economy. For the first time in the history of our great nation, we have the ability to customize curriculum to the needs of each and every student in America. We're working on that infrastructure to make this a reality right here in North Carolina. An infrastructure that can change the face of education for the first time in history. An infrastructure that celebrates the uniqueness of each and every child, not one that tries to make each child common. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach to education. There is no such thing to a one-size-fits-all set of standards. And when it comes to STEM, we are all anxious to prepare as many students as possible for the growing demands of STEM education in our universities and workplaces. It has been brought to my attention on multiple occasions that the new math sequence of Common Core does not prepare our students for these demands. In the words of one of the Common Core Validation Committee members who did not sign on to the Common Core, instead of being able to complete algebra in grade 8, students will not be able to complete it until the 9th or even the beginning of the 10th grade. Common Core does not prepare students for a STEM career. There are not enough standards for students to accomplish pre-calculus, and there is no way to get to elite algebra 2 or calculus 1, which would be the baseline for a STEM career. If we continue down this path, the STEM pipeline will shrink. It is deliberately not preparing our students for STEM, and we don't know why. These standards can't be rigorous if they don't prepare our students for STEM, end quote. We can do better than Common Core. Let's do what is best for our students in North Carolina. Let's create North Carolina standards that are the best and the most rigorous in America, designed by our educators, our experts, and our teachers, specifically for our students. Let's encourage other states to do the same. Let's learn from each other and adopt what is good and get rid of what is bad. This is the American way. If today we were debating whether or not to accept Massachusetts standards, you would not hear any argument from me. They have been tried, tested, proven successful. We would know the costs, we would know the challenges we face, we would know how to train our teachers. We would have assessments already written, tested, rewritten, and improved to get results. But we can't say the same for the Common Core. The Common Core has very little field testing and no refinement from what has been learned through field testing. It has been rolled out in North Carolina across all grade levels, across all counties, across all schools, to all students at one time without even knowing if these standards truly are more rigorous or whether they truly prepare our students for jobs or college. You have all heard the term internationally benchmarked. It never happened with Common Core. An international benchmark does not exist on the Common Core standards. Perhaps the assessments, but not the standards. You have all heard the term college-ready standards. Perhaps if you're referring to a 2-year technical degree, but not the requirements of our demanding 4-year North Carolina universities or for fields of STEM education. You have all heard the term rigorous standards. More rigorous? Perhaps. But how will we know? We have no baseline test to evaluate our students' performance. A simple norm test, whether it be Iowa or Stanford or others, would solve the problem and give us real feedback for evaluation. And rigor. When it's continually pushed down to lower grades, it eventually becomes developmentally inappropriate. When these standards were released, over 500 early childhood health and educational professionals from around the country signed on to a letter that addressed the inappropriateness of these standards. More specifically, the standards conflicted with compelling new research in cognitive science, neuroscience, child development, and early childhood education. And this research did not support what Common Core was promising about how young children learn. And a note about our teachers. We are all demanding more from our teachers than ever before. With new standards, high-stakes testing, and performance measures, our teachers are being pushed to the limit. During one of the greatest recessions we have ever experienced, money is tight. At the same time, we are trying to find ways to increase teacher pay. The cost estimates for Common Core implementation are $350 million on the low end. Imagine how far that would go to supplement pay. And in conclusion, I believe we need North Carolina design standards designed by North Carolina educators and professionals for North Carolina students. Education is our responsibility. It belongs to our legislature, our school boards, our county commissions, our principals and our teachers, and especially to our parents. Let's not give that responsibility away. When we last designed standards in North Carolina, the General Assembly provided a review board called the Standards and Accountability Commission. This commission was an independently appointed board of North Carolinians that reviewed the standards of public education along with associated assessments every 2 years. I would like to request to the General Assembly that we reconvene the Standards and Accountability Commission for the purpose of reviewing each standard in Common Core to see if the standards meet North Carolina expectations, North Carolina goals, and North Carolina needs. Keep the ones that work, throw out the ones that don't, and reestablish North Carolina control over education for our families and children. In the end, it will not be standards that change our education system, but a wholesale fundamental shift in the way we educate. Mastery-based learning, removing excessive testing and unnecessary mandates from our classrooms, treating our teachers like professionals, customizing curriculum to our students' gifts, needs, and desires. These are the things that are going to transform education. Let's put standards in their proper place, and let's get down to business. Thank you very much.
Folks in the audience, I know that you may want to clap or have some reaction to, and Lieutenant Governor, if you can come up, we still have 5 minutes to let members have some Q&A. But we can't clap, we can't have outbursts and the affirmative or the negative, so if you can, just please sit quietly and listen. We just don't allow that here. Lieutenant Governor, you were amazing. You were 10 minutes right on the dot, so if everybody else can do that today, it'd be great. But we've got about 5 minutes for Q&A. Do members have any questions for Lieutenant Governor? Over here. Where? Senator Tillman.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. You're saying what I've been hearing out in the district, and I've been traveling a lot, not only in Randolph and Moore County, but I've talked to a lot of people. When I first started hearing these concerns, it was from my friends on the right. I said, okay, all right. I thought it made some sense to make it North Carolina brand in the first place. But now I've got the soccer moms in Pinehurst and in Asheboro, and many of them are not on the right at all. They're on the left, and they have concerns, especially about some of the testing associated with this and some of the costs that you referred to that we've got to come up with. If certain tests are mandated nationally, we've got nationally validated tests, Iowa Test of Basic Skills, NAEP, ACT, SAT, I can name you 10 or 12 that would work, that would not have as high a cost associated with it. So I'm glad to hear you saying those things. And the idea of a blue ribbon standards commission, to me, makes a ton of sense. And I would certainly expect on that committee to have representation from the state board, state superintendent, and some teachers and some various interested people. But there, to me, Lieutenant Governor, I think what you said about North Carolina being able to be in charge of its own destiny is something that runs throughout the theme that I've heard a lot of people say. It's not that we don't have some very good standards, and some are tougher in the Common Core than we had. And I love that. And I know there are areas that we can toughen the standards, and I think we should do that. I know there's some age and grade inappropriateness in the early grades. I've talked to teachers. I've talked to about 100, and I've had 1 or 2 to tell me that they love everything about it. But other than that, it's not that way. And I know we spent a lot of money training. I know we've done a lot of money, and we don't need to totally invent the wheel, but we need to brand it North Carolina. And the first thing I would want us to do is change the name. Common Core gives me all kind of chills, and it has nothing to do with North Carolina Standards for Excellence. I think State Superintendent Dr. Atkinson would agree that that name, Common Core, ought never to have been used to start with. And it says nothing about North Carolina Standards for Excellence. But I appreciate your comments, and thank you for what you had to say. I know you've been into this for a good while.
Now, Senator Tillman, you know I love you, and I got to pick on you a little bit. When we're in ed oversight, you're always telling folks to be brief. You took about 3 minutes there to ask that question, so I just wanted to let you know.
What time it was? I thought you said Bill o'clock.
I just wanted to pick at you. You know I love you. But Co-Chairman Suchek and then Senator Daniels.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the key principles you touched on, and then you even gave some really good ideas on how to work towards this, was the idea that North Carolina needs to control our standards. We need to be able to evaluate, add, take away from, and I think that is a key aspect of what I've heard from constituents, and I really appreciate the vision you shared there, but also some of the tactical or even practical ways to go about that. The question I have, and maybe you may be able to know this just from this time you've spent in this, if not, we may ask it to other professionals later down, but you talked about, and this is a great concern, that we adopted standards that the tests we were going to have, evaluations, making sure that how teachers were going to teach them, how students were going to learn. It didn't seem like those evaluations really took place in an effective way, and you mentioned that. How does that compare to every 5 years, staff, I believe, we're required by statute to evaluate new standards, is that correct? State board is. I know the state board now is different than 3 years ago, under different leadership, but how does it compare now that every go through this iteration of updating, changing our standards? Is this normal practice? Is this just the first time we kind of caught it, that it wasn't tested, or has in the past, has it been tested more? And is this normal, or is this an aberration?
Great question, Senator. I think that this is more of a wholesale approach than we've had in the past. We've changed standards in the past, but we've kept similar assessments, or had to update assessments. We didn't have to change the entire methodology, but behind the way that teachers teach and the way that entire curriculums are rolled out, or doing that without textbooks or without curriculum, as many of the teachers that I run into on a regular basis. I run into teachers who say, on some hands they say we've been trained very well, and on other hands they say we haven't been trained at all. Some will say, yeah, I have the tools that I need to do my job. Other teachers say, I don't have any tools at all. And so I think it's this wholesale approach now that we have standards we're dealing with. They're trying to figure out the new teaching methodology of the integration of Common Core into everything. It's not just math and English language arts now, because it integrates into all other subjects, whether we are adopting the other curriculum or the other standards as well. So it's already integrated. So the teachers are trying to figure out how to do this, and then they're doing it without curriculum. They're having to go out onto Facebook and having to go onto the internet to find their curriculum to be able to teach their students. And there's just so many things going on at once. I kind of call it the perfect storm. And so I think that's why this one is so much more complex than they've ever been in the past.
So, got Senator Daniels and the Representative Pittman. We're already running a little over time on this, so we got to, again, get out of here in about 2.5 hours. So if you can keep your questions very brief and answers brief as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for being here today and sharing your thoughts with us. I know you've done some exhaustive research on this subject, and that you could probably, share that with us over a period of an hour or more. But one of the things that's concerned me about just the debate over Common Core is, you have people that say, well, some say it's age inappropriate, some say it's not, some say it is, some say it's internationally benchmarked. Some say it's not. So I guess I want to just direct a specific question to you. Based on your research on the issue of international benchmark, what do you think is accurate in that debate? Is it internationally benchmarked or is it not?
Well, I think a simple question to ask is which countries were these assessments, or these standards internationally benchmarked against, and what is the specific benchmark? If we lift up and say, well, we have the TIM study that is done based on the assessments that come from our testing every year, well, that's one thing. That's from an assessment. That's not the standards themselves. What was sold in the beginning with Common Core was that these standards were to be internationally benchmarked. Even in the application that we put forward in the second race, the top application for it, it said, we're accepting these because you're saying that they're rigorous and they're internationally benchmarked. I haven't heard from anybody yet today, other than the assessments themselves being internationally benchmarked. Of course they are. They have been. With other things that have been benchmarked internationally. That's what assessments do. But the standards themselves, when the standards were written, how were they benchmarked against other nations? What was that process, and who were those countries? And to date, I've asked that question many times to many people, and I've never gotten an answer on it. So I think that question is still up in the air. Maybe other folks who are here today can help shed some light on it.
Senator Pittman, is your question quick? I hope so.
I'll try to make it quick as I
Okay.
can. Lieutenant Governor, just two quick things. I received a phone call last night indicating that a lot of teachers who might otherwise be willing to come will not be coming to my town hall in Common Core next Tuesday out of fear for their jobs. The other thing is that I keep hearing and reading that Common Core, as it's being done and with the pressure from the federal government, actually violates 3 federal statutes. I wonder if you'd like to comment on those two things.
Well, I talked about the Constitution in and of itself, and to date, there has been no push from the Supreme Court to say that the federal government in and of itself has anything to do with it. And I think the argument can still be made that this comes from the trade associations, from the Governors Association, the chief executive officers of education. So that's fine, but the federal government does have lots of roles that they play in this, whether it's through the Race to the Top grants and the ability to attract people to Common Core through large sums of money and that sort of thing. That set aside, the teacher thing, I've met lots of teachers who just don't like Common Core. They have their challenges with Common Core. They certainly have their challenges with the assessment process with Common Core and how they're getting assessed and those types of things as well. I haven't met many teachers. I've had a handful, but not many teachers who are very favorable towards it. Maybe that's just the circles I run in. Maybe that's just where I go and speak. But I've had lots of teachers contact us in lots of different ways who are either not happy with the training they've had, with the curriculum, their ability to get the curriculum, the ability to put together a comprehensive package to be able to teach this well. So whether that's training or teaching or whether that's the standards, I really don't know. I couldn't give you a clear picture of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for being with us. And members, if you have any other questions, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer them for you by email.